We are not going away. We are staying here to liberate this city from the socialist and the burdensome leadership that this governor and that this mayor have placed on this country and what they have tried to insert into this city. So I want to say thank you to every single person that has been able to do this. Also,
I'm Senator Alex Padilla. I have questions for the Secretary, because the fact of the matter is a half a dozen violent criminals that you're rotating on your heads off.
How many of our ICE agents have been doxxed for doing their duty, how they have been targeted.
Hands behind your back. Hands behind your back.
If you let my hands go and stand behind my back.
All right, cool. One hand, lay flat, lay flat.
Other hand, sir. Other hand.
There's no recording allowed out here. I did not know. There's no recording allowed out here per FBI regs.
You just watched Donald Trump's goons physically remove Californian Senator Alex Padilla when he tried to confront DHS Secretary Kristi Noem at a public press conference about the Trump administration's illegal conduct in his state of California. And I've got to say, seeing them treat a United States senator like this is chilling, because if they're willing to do that to him, imagine what they do to you. And to hear Kristi Noem say that the military will remain in Los Angeles against the governor's wishes, which makes it illegal, to liberate the city, that's very ominous, because it indicates that they are deliberately framing this as a type of rebellion or uprising in order to potentially justify their eventual invocation of the Insurrection Act to violently put down these protests. But if Trump really does invoke the Insurrection Act, which is something that he's currently mulling over according to reports, that right there is when things could get very serious very quickly. Because as Thom Hartmann explains, because the Insurrection Act suspends posse comitatus, the 1878 law that prevents the U.S. military from being used as a domestic police force, with the stroke of a pen, Trump can militarize every protest, shut down dissent, seize media infrastructure, or even delay or postpone elections on grounds of public disorder. Think that's far-fetched? Trump has already floated the idea of suspending elections. He joked in 2020 about 12 more years. His allies in Congress and right-wing media are openly calling for him to stay in office as long as necessary. A majority of Republican voters now say they'd support postponing elections in an emergency. And who defines the emergency? Trump does. So we may be up shit creek without a paddle, because Trump already vowed to put troops everywhere in America. So if he invokes the Insurrection Act and follows through on that threat, you'd likely see mass mobilization in response, which would inevitably result in more clashes between protesters and federal law enforcement, which would then be broadcasted across all mainstream media outlets to give people the impression that the country really is in a genuine state of emergency, which would then legitimize Trump taking extraordinary actions like suspending elections until he declares that the emergency is over, meaning we would officially reach the point of no return and cross over into a full-blown dictatorship at that point. Then all bets are off. Things go from bad to worse like that. And it's already the case that Democrats who are elected, like Alex Padilla, are being manhandled, while others, like LaMonica McIver, are now facing a maximum of 17 years in prison after the Trump administration frivolously charged her with interfering with federal law enforcement when she tried to show up to inspect an ICE facility in her state. So, I mean, if things are already this bad, imagine how unhinged Trump would be if he had an emergency declaration in effect that would legitimize even more repressive tactics. And listen, the one good thing that I'll say, like a silver lining, is that it's clear that the protests are impeding ICE's efforts, and Trump also said that he's going to try to focus specifically on the criminals. Now, he could be lying, but regardless if he's telling the truth or not, the fact that he's saying this is a tacit admission that the protests are making it more difficult for ICE to deport as many people as he wants. So, in other words, the protests are effective. So, you know, based on that, maybe he wouldn't want to purposefully inflame tensions more, although it's clear that he's doing that now, but perhaps it's being counterproductive in his mind. You know, you can't really analyze what he's doing because he's incredibly impulsive and stupid. But I mean, just to see the escalation, you know, the thing that they did to Alex Padilla, what they're doing to LaMonica McIver. I mean, I'll say it again. If they're doing this to elected officials, imagine what they do to us. Imagine how bad it is for people in worse predicaments, immigrant communities currently being terrorized by ICE. This was a point that Senator Alex Padilla made after he was released, and it's a great point, so I want to play that for you.
If this is how this administration responds to a senator with a question, if this is how the Department of Homeland Security responds to a senator with a question, you can only imagine what they're doing to farm workers, to cooks, to day laborers out in the Los Angeles community and throughout California and throughout the country. We will hold this administration accountable.
Right. Them treating elected officials this way is an indication that they'd be even more ruthless towards regular people. And I'm not just talking about non-citizens, because so many citizens have already been caught up in these ICE sweeps. In Los Angeles, for example, ICE detained a U.S. citizen who's 9 months pregnant. So she was very visibly pregnant, but they arrested her and they justified her illegal arrest by saying that she was obstructing the arrest of her undocumented husband. But as you're going to see from the footage, she was obstructing them by asking if they had a warrant before they entered private property, which they didn't have. Otherwise, they would have presented it to her. Nonetheless, let's watch.
They had us all surrounded.
Carrie Lopez talking to us from her hospital bed after agents released her and sent her home, she says, following this arrest Sunday at Hawthorne and 120th, caught on video.
I had lost my balance because he was kind of like shoving me away from the door. And that's when I kind of just leaned forward because I was kind of trying to protect the stomach.
Let her go, she's pregnant.
Video from neighbors we obtained show them calling for her release. You can hear passerbys honking their horns in protest. Lopez says agents took her into custody, saying she was trying to obstruct their operation. We reached out to DHS for comment and have not heard back.
I'm gonna need you guys to leave. This is private property.
You can hear Lopez on this video she shared with us confronting agents as they pulled up to the building where they were working doing maintenance. The agents were in marked Border Patrol vehicles. She says her husband and co-worker, both undocumented, thought they were being followed by agents when they tried to pull into the building's private parking. Her and her cousin, both U.S. citizens, opened up the gate for her husband to enter. They thought agents needed a warrant to enter as well.
Excuse me, ma'am.
No.
Listen to me. You are interfering with my arrest.
Get out. Well, you
I'm
can
doing my
take
job.
me.
You have no say to say. No, have nothing to say.
This is private property.
Okay, is it your property?
Yes.
Okay, can you show me your documentation? Is it your property? Is that your property? Can you please move away?
No, I'm not moving away. I'm not moving away.
I was blocking the doors because they were trying to forcefully open them. But I told them they were on private property.
She says agents said it wasn't private property and arrested her, her husband, cousin, and co-worker.
I wasn't resisting or anything. I was just like you're gonna handcuff me. But I'm not. I can't fight back. I'm pregnant.
So stories like this explain why there's so much resistance to the ICE Gestapo. They are utterly unhinged. I mean, last week in Arizona, they literally arrested a fucking U.S. Marshal after they racially profiled him. Not to mention, they've posed as electricians to illegally gain entry into people's homes without warrants. They've raided birthday parties. They are predators in every sense of the word. These masked thugs are coming into communities, raiding workplaces, stirring shit up, and then getting mad at protesters that mobilize to try to defend people from their abuses. So it's now evident more than ever that citizenship is just no longer going to protect you from the ICE Gestapo. And if this administration is now manhandling people in power, needless to say, they're not going to be mindful of our constitutional rights and civil liberties that are supposed to protect us from these kinds of abuses either. In fact, Trump already signed an executive order back in March greenlighting data sharing across agencies, which will be organized by dystopian spy tech company Palantir, who's already working with ICE to surveil populations. So if all of this data gathering amounts to some sort of master list of all Americans, suffice to say, that could easily be weaponized against us since that process is being streamlined as we speak. The question is, how far will things go? Trump just threatened violence against anyone who protests his military parade when we have a First Amendment right to protest in this country. So, what's next? Will he start to put pressure on social media companies to restrict our speech online too? Hassan Piker just shared a letter that he received from the Department of Homeland Security telling him that they're denying him membership into the Global Entry Program, and it insinuated that it was because of his political views. So how far will this administration go to punish people for thought crimes or for being critical of Donald Trump? We don't know. Things could get real Orwellian real fucking fast. But one thing that a lot of Americans haven't come to terms with yet is the reality that we're getting closer to. And that's the prospect of an actual standoff between the U.S. military and U.S. citizens. See, U.S. Marines have already been deployed to Los Angeles. And if Trump responds to the anti-ICE protests that are popping up across the country with even more soldiers, and he doesn't back down like he's saying he's going to, that increases the probability of U.S. military violence against American citizens. And if you think that the troops you've always supported would object to an unconstitutional order to attack American citizens, I'm here to tell you that they absolutely would not. They'd carry out Trump's unconstitutional orders without hesitation. We know this because active duty soldiers who are supposed to remain apolitical gave us a glimpse of where their loyalty lies this week. And unsurprisingly, it's not with us, it's with the commander-in-chief.
And before going further, I want to say a few words about the situation in Los Angeles, California. Have you heard of the place? Where I've deployed thousands of National Guard troops and hundreds of Marines to protect federal law enforcement from the attacks of a vicious and violent mob. And some of the radical left, they say, oh, that's not nice. Well, if we didn't do it, there wouldn't be a Los Angeles. It'd be burning today, just like their houses were burning a number of months ago. Generations of Army heroes did not shed their blood on distant shores only to watch our country be destroyed by invasion and third world lawlessness here at home, like is happening in California. As Commander-in-Chief, I will not let that happen. It's never going to happen. Open border policy, the dumbest policy yet. I would say even dumber than men playing in women's sports, transgender for everyone. Even dumber than that.
I'm sorry, but these people are not going to refuse an unlawful order. If they're ordered to fire on protesters, they're going to do it, no questions asked. Some would refuse for sure, and those people will be remembered throughout history as heroes, but most would not refuse that order. But we may know for sure soon, because it could happen. And with regard to that specific group, sure, you can say that that crowd was curated by Trump based on their politics and appearance, as military.com reports. But social science studies like the Stanford Prison Experiment way back in the 1970s indicates that individuals are inclined to obey people in positions of authority. And it's not like American troops are unique compared to troops around the world. When governments go tyrannical and dictators give these orders, they follow the orders. It's not like American troops are any different. We're all human beings subject to the same social pressures. So I think that if you're a member of the military and your commanding officer gives you an order that came down from the commander-in-chief himself, you're going to follow that order. Trump holds all the cards right now, so depending on how things go in the next couple of weeks, we could be living in a very different country in the coming months. And I hate to sound like Chicken Little or be accused of fear-mongering, but I think that we have to be prepared for anything because we're dealing with somebody who is truly unhinged. And if Donald Trump refused to leave office after losing an election and incited an insurrection, I don't think that ordering the military to fire on protesters is something that's beneath him. Okay, he's about power. So he doesn't care about the Constitution or civil liberties or morality. He's about getting accomplished what he wants to be accomplished. And right now he's saying he's going to back off, which is a good sign. And that's an indication that you should continue to mobilize and stand in solidarity with immigrant communities. You should continue to make your voice heard and show up at the No Kings protest, for example. But at the end of the day, you know, what he does, it could be much, much worse if he actually does invoke the Insurrection Act, and I hope that he doesn't do that, but I guess we'll find out very soon. So buckle up, folks, because it could be a bumpy ride over the next couple of months.